This is the MacBook Pro M1 2020 A2338 battery replacement guide. Here we're going to plug it in and check the amps. It's not even getting 1 amp. It's not even getting 0.50 amps. So we're going to plug it in, turn it on, and see what's going on with this thing. And we'll see if it turns off when it gets unplugged like they said it did. And if so, then we'll try reseating the battery. And I left that part out of the video because I wanted to get straight to the point that we have to replace the battery. We'll flip it over and we'll grab our 4PL screwdriver and unscrew all the screws from the bottom. And then I'll show you how to take off the back. Before we get too far in the video, I need to show you what tools you need. I'll link them all in the description below. A 4PL screwdriver, a T5 screwdriver, a chisel blade for cleaning up adhesive. You're going to want to need a big plastic pry tool. That is very important. A little spudger or plastic pry tool for disconnecting the battery. Drive savers, credit card for taking out the battery as well. Some alcohol mixed with a touch of acetone, not very much, like a splash. And then you'll want some tweezers. This amp reader is very handy for diagnosing MacBooks. And then we will replace the battery, and let's get back to the video. All the screws are removed. You'll pry right here with a metal pry tool and get your tool underneath the bottom case and then work your way around to the edge right here in the middle. Then give it a good twist and you'll hear a pop. And then once it popped, you'll work your tool around the edge here, lift it with your hand, and then go to the other side and listen for the pop. Then you'll grab both sides with both your hands, and then you'll have to slide it downwards towards the bottom and slide it off just like so. And it is very difficult to get that part off. Don't get too frustrated. Just take your time. Grab out a plastic spudger and disconnect the battery. You'll lift this little lever thing and kind of flip it over, and then you'll slide it out by pulling the piece of tape. Then you'll pull this piece of tape back with this little heat bracket on it. And then you'll grab out a T5 screwdriver and unscrew this screw in the red to fully disconnect the battery. Before we get too far into the video, I want you guys to check out this video sponsor. This video sponsor, Drive Savers, and this is a hard drive. It is definitely broken and it needs a data recovery. Along with this phone was unrepairable and has something board level wrong with it. And Drive Savers is definitely the place you want to send your repairs that you fail to repair and you need to do a data recovery. Use my reference code to get a free estimate today and see if they can get the data. I'll leave details in my description below. To the repair. So we got the part from mobilecentrics.com and it is an A2338 battery that is cross-compatible with other models of MacBooks. You want to make sure that you have the right battery, and you can always check the battery model number on the battery itself. All right, we'll use our T5 screwdriver to remove the 2 screws holding down the trackpad connection, and then we'll get that disconnected. Please, if you find my guide helpful, I don't make very much from my videos, so please leave me a super thanks. All right, so grab a plastic pry tool and then lift up on the trackpad connector. You don't want to break it, so be very gentle and take your time. I sped that part up. Grab your T5 screwdriver, remove the 2 screws holding down the battery connection. Next, we'll take off the battery flex cable. You want to make sure you keep track of it. It has a little lever that comes off, just like the other battery part of the battery connection, and you keep track of it and make sure. Sometimes I recommend just leaving it in the battery so then you don't have to keep track of it and you can worry about it at the end of the repair when you're putting the battery in. Now let's add some alcohol. It has a little bit of acetone in it, just a hint. And then it will allow us to break the adhesive free, and we'll use our big plastic pry tool to get underneath the battery. And we'll also use a guitar pick or a credit card to get underneath the battery as well. And the big plastic pry tool does help the most. It works your way under. And then also I recommend letting the alcohol sit for a minute to loosen the adhesive some more. And when you get by the trackpad, be very careful to not push it right underneath where the trackpad flex cable is, where you can instantly rip something and break it. Be aware that there's holes underneath the middle one where you could accidentally scratch up or put alcohol on the trackpad. So we got to clean up the adhesive. I recommend using a chisel blade, and then also you'll want to have a paper towel because this stuff is super sticky after you put alcohol on it, and you can't get it off your hands very well unless you rub it against something. Perfect. We got all the adhesive removed. Let's blow it off. Make sure there's no excess alcohol inside the computer before we put the new battery in. Also, make sure you keep track of that flex cable of the battery because I blew mine off my desk and I almost flopped to this video because I couldn't find it, but I found it. And thank goodness I found it just in the oddest places. And I want to show you guys it, but it's such a mess. I'm not going to. But it was just in a corner behind my desk, and I can't believe I found it. So I was able to finish this video so I could make you guys this guide. So line up the battery holes for the screws first in the middle one, and then you'll lay it down. You want it to align perfectly so then it will screw down and latch. And I laid it down the first time, and actually it didn't allow the trackpad cable to reach, so I had to get my plastic pry tool quickly and lift it up real fast, and that's not ideal when you're using this adhesive that can seal it down. You can bend up the battery and make it a not very good battery, but I got it off just fine and then reseated the battery back down. Then I connect on the trackpad to make sure it connects on and reaches and everything, and then just make sure that it's not snagging on the edges right next to the trackpad and all. This battery replacement is quite easier than a lot of the other touch bar battery replacements I've done where you have to take out the logic board or unscrew the logic board to get the battery out, and you don't have to do that for this one, and the part isn't serialized to the computer at all, so you don't have to worry about any weird messages that Apple has been putting in place on some of their newer devices, and we don't know that about some of the newer M3 laptops if it will have a battery message or not yet. I will be linking all the tools in my description below. Please read through them carefully while you do this, before you do this repair, and especially do not use a metal tool to remove a battery. You could start a fire, and also it's important for you to know if the repair fails to send your device to drive savers if you want to get your data off. And I'll leave a link in my description below with a reference code, and you'll be able to get a free quote and a free estimate of how much it will be to get your data off. Anyways, we'll get the trackpad connected, and then we'll put back the T5 screws, and we also screwed down the battery already, where we screwed those down first because you want to make sure it aligns with the battery connection on the logic board. I wanted to note, if it did fail when you tried to repair it, it could be the charge port. So please check out my video of how to do a charge port replacement. And if it seems like too much work for you to do, you can always ship me your device. Email me, mark@worthitRepairs.com, and we can set that all up. Grab out the power flex cable and we'll put it down on the battery first, and then we'll connect it onto the logic board. But before we connect it onto the logic board, we'll have to screw down that final T5 screw, the big one, and then we'll connect it onto the logic board. To get it to turn on, you'll have to plug it into the charger. So make sure you have the charger handy while you do this repair, because you're going to need it to get it to turn on. It won't turn on otherwise. I was having a hard time with the battery connection, so I grabbed some tweezers to help me guide the battery connection in. You want to make sure you don't touch the gold pins with the tweezers because you could shock yourself or the computer, and then it might not work afterwards. So be very careful with that part. Now grab your charger, plug it in, and see if it turns on. And it's turning on, and it's getting 1.50 amps, 60, 90, 2 amps, 2.50 amps. All right, the battery is working, so we're going to test it, and we'll put it back together, and I'll leave all the testing out of the video because this is my customer's privacy.